Today I have this page from Lodestars Anthology, the Australia edition. In theory, it should be a quick one because it's a single column with a few block quotes and some paragraphs. But these lines have caught my eye. They kind of stick out right from the middle of this block quote. And I think that would normally be a challenge. So I'm going to try and recreate this one live for you and see what we get done, okay? So starting off, we have a title and some text. I'm going to use another H group for that because I really, really like how that fits together. And then I'm going to finish by adding an HR for this line here, just because it's a little easier to control that way, okay? Back here in CodePen, we can get that started. So here's our H group. And that H1, this is what? This is my great title. We don't have to uppercase it here because we're going to do that later on in CSS. But we do need a couple paragraphs, and we're going to set around seven bits of text in there, okay? 7 words. We're going to get rid of this one because the first is shorter than the second. Apparently not so much today. It's sampled funny, but there we go, okay? So we have this H group. Remember, we're only allowed one heading, and everything else has to be a paragraph in order to meet the spec standards. But at this point, we have it. Down below, we have our HR, and now we have everything that comes after that. I want to leave the block quote for a second because that's a little bit special. But we know that we need 3 paragraphs in here, so we can bang those out pretty quick. 3 of them, just like this. And there we go, 3 paragraphs, okay? Add a little space between the second and third because we're going to put 1 block quote here and 1 block quote here. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because we have a block quote and we have this citation right below it, okay? And we need a way to hold these together. Now we could put them in a div. I mean, that's quick and easy and somewhat boring, but there's a better way. And you might think to put the citation inside of the block quote. Please don't do that. The block quote is specifically a quote. And so anything that is not a quote, like the person's name, should not be in there. But we do have a way. We can use something called figure. And you might think, wait a minute, figure is for images, for charts, right? It's for figures. But underneath it, figure is a universal container that can hold any groups of information. Okay, so it's like a more advanced div. And the nice thing about it is that it comes with a fig caption, which we'll use in a second to hold the caption, okay? But up here, we're going to go block quote. We can absolutely do that. In fact, if you look at the MDN documentation, they use this exact example, okay? Inside of here, we're going to add some more lorem ipsum, probably not that much, maybe just 25 words worth, so that it doesn't get too long. Okay. Down here, we have the name of the person saying it. Now, I'm not really sure about this last part. It could be a title or it could be an organization. I'm going to assume that it is some sort of source. Okay. And that way we can play a little bit with something else here. Because I've been calling this whole thing a citation. And that's how I interpret it. But HTML, the living standard of HTML, does not agree with me. Instead, HTML believes that a site, the site tag, CITE, should only be used to reference the actual source material. So there's always been this weird give and take between how do we just quote a name when we're writing our quotes. And that's one of the great things about fig caption is that it gives us that opportunity, right? So we can go in here and say someone famous like this. And what did they, this was an artist statement. Let's go with that. Right here. And after it, this is where I'm going to add a site. I'm going to make an assumption that that little bit on the end is the organization. So it makes sense to me that that would be the reference source, and that would fit nicely inside of a site. It also handily goes italic for us, which is just super. Okay, we're going to have to do that right over here. Okay, so we have this. We can go and grab it, copy it, move it all the way down to here just before the last paragraph, paste it in, and now we have two. Now, I don't really want the same lorem text, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go p times 2, lorem 25, and I'm just going to grab everything inside of that second one, cut it out, delete these, just so that we have something different, okay? And paste. And that way we have two different quotes. They're roughly the same length, but two different quotes. Maybe the second one was done by someone else famous. Brilliant. Now we have all of the markup that we need to get this done. So we can go right to the CSS and start styling this out. I want to start with the body tag. And the reason for that is because I want to set the background color to be canvas. Canvas is a magic word that is dictated by your color scheme, by your system color scheme. So when your color scheme is dark, canvas will be dark. And when your system color is light, then your canvas color will be white, okay? It isn't right now, I'll explain why in a second, but let's go and get color really fast. This is going to be canvas text. Again, they switch back and forth. So right now, canvas is white, canvas text is black. All is okay, all is exactly as we would assume. But if I go in here and I add color scheme, and I set it to dark, like this, it immediately flips. This is where the magic is, okay? So canvas is predicated on this color scheme. If the color scheme is set to dark, then we get that. If the color scheme is light, we can do both of these. If my color scheme was set to light, then it would be light. Now, because I have my operating system set to dark, we're only seeing dark, so I'm going to comment that out. But at this point, we have something that automatically changes. I get this for free in all new browsers, okay? I didn't need to do any sort of media queries or anything like that. It just works, which is awesome. Moving down, I'm going to get that H group. I'm also going to get the paragraphs, okay? Right now, the paragraphs are the only things there, but just to be sure that I'm getting the right paragraphs, I'm going to get the ones that are only a child of the body. So not the paragraphs that are inside the group, but just the paragraphs inside the body, okay? Right here, I'm going to add some stuff. So max width of 400. Excellent. And right below it, text align justify. That way it goes right to the edge, looks very, very much like a magazine. And now I'm going to center it. And the way that we center it is with margin auto. But I need to be careful here because if I just go and set margin auto, it's going to get rid of my top and bottom margins. So margin left of auto, margin right of auto. And now it's all centered down the page, which is excellent. That's exactly what I want. I'm also going to add some padding in here. And that padding is just so that when it is small, it doesn't bang up against the edge of the screen, okay? So moving on, we got that. We don't have this title though. The title and age group text should actually be centered. We can do that. Age group, text align center. Done, problem solved. Moving down, H1. The H1 has a few different things going on here. On the one hand, it has a dash border. It's also uppercase. It's a little bit bigger. A few things going on. A little bit of space between these letters too, so some letter spacing, some tracking, kerning. We can get most of that done, and it should look pretty close. So let's start with the font. Font should be 2.5. I'm going to try and make it thinner, but I don't think this font supports that. Oh, that one does. Let's try the serif version. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. So 2.5, it's going to be uppercase, just like that. And what else do I need? I need some letter spacing. That letter spacing is not going to be normal. It's going to be 3 pixels. So we're going to stretch it out just a little bit. Okay. And if we keep moving on, we have border bottom. Yeah, it's kind of okay, but we actually want it as dashed. And we don't need the color because the color defaults to whatever the color of H1. And right now that is canvas text, okay? So we don't need anything like that, but we definitely need to space this out a little bit. So let's go down here and add padding 1 rem. Whew, padding bottom 1 rem. My bad. There we go. Looking a lot better, okay? Everything else is pretty okay. Let's go and get that HR. Whoops, HR, just like this. The HR has a max width of 15 ch. If you've never used ch as a measurement, it is the width of a 0. So imagine 15 zeros, that's how long this line is right now. Now from there, we are going to add some border to this as well. And let's make it 3 pixels. Now you're going to notice that it's a lot bigger than 3 pixels. In fact, it is, if I just wrap this up, it is 6 pixels right there. You can see it, okay? And the reason for that is because the HR, even though the HR looks like a line, it's actually a box. And when you add a border, it will, it'll add all 4 borders. So we need to take care of that. The way to do that is to set border 0 and then border bottom of 3 pixels or top. Doesn't matter. It works either way, okay? So now that we got that, we want some space underneath it. Let's go and get that margin again. It's going to be 0, auto, and 2 rem. Seems about right. Just to push it down the page a little bit. If we set this to 0, it will go over to the edge. We don't want that. So please make sure that it's auto. And we are off to the races. Already this is looking pretty sharp. Okay. At this point, we can start attacking those quotes. And the quotes are going to need all of our love on this one. That's where we're going to spend the most time. Okay. So because I haven't added any class names to this, if it was production, I'd probably be class naming this up everywhere. But for now, we're just going to get that figure, okay? And inside of that figure, I'm going to set the color to be sienna. Brilliant, okay? Everything is sienna. We don't really want that. Let's go and get that block quote. Figure block quote, just like this. And, whoops, use the right brackets, thank you. The color is not going to be black. Remember, we have this special situation where we're using canvas text, okay? And that way, whenever we flip this back and forth, it's going to switch for us, just like that. In fact, we need to go and take care of that right now. Where is it hiding? It is right here. And now that flips too. So the HR is good. All the text is nice. Let's switch it back really fast because we can keep working on this, okay? So we have the block quote color. We have the figure color, which is allowing all of this to work. It's not centered though. Let's go and take care of that. So text align center. should bring all of that into the center, exactly like that. There are some weird margins here. So we have a margin 0 here. We're going to get rid of that. There's also a margin on the block quote. We want to get rid of that. That way we're working in as clean a state as we can. Okay? From here, we can set our max width. Our max width goes on the block quote. So right here, and it's going to be 70 ch. Remember, that's based off of the 0 again. So nice, safe measurement. Okay. Strangely enough, not quite what we were thinking. We can sort that right here. Perfect. Okay. Fig caption. Let's go and add some space there. Margin top, right? Margin top of 1 rem. If I was using logical properties, this would be margin block start. Okay. Now, in order to see what's going on, I'm going to add a background color. It's going to be sky blue, just so that we can see what is happening. And you're going to notice that the blue is only right around the text. Remember, we used margin and max width here. So our max width is dictating this box. But when we get over here, we're going to want this rule to be all the way to the edge of the page. So it makes sense to me that at least to start out, we need this box to extend to the edge of the page. Okay? So let's go and do that. The easiest way to do that is to not use max width, but to use padding. Okay? We could go up here and add like extra divs and stuff like that so that we can control it. We actually don't need that because padding does exactly what we need. And it looks a little bit like this. We're going to comment that out. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by adding some lines in here just so that we can see stuff. Okay? And that way, when we change it, we'll know that it is close enough. Okay? We'll be able to see the change. So first, this auto, we don't need it. And this max width, we don't need it. Instead, we're going to go with padding. That padding is going to be top and bottom is 0. We don't need any top and bottom padding. But here we do a calc. And this calc is going to be based on 50% minus our maximum width. So 50% minus 70 divided by 2 is 35 ch. And the nice thing about calc, you can see that it's already working pretty close. We have a little bit more space than we want. We'll figure that out in a second. But the nice thing about calc is that you can mix these measurements. You don't have to worry about it. It just works. Now, the reason that we have extra space is because the extra space is over here. We can take care of that right up on body. Just go margin 0. And now we are looking pretty good. Okay? At this point, we want to add that line. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. We could add a background to the figure and then a background to the block quote. But as you saw in my last video, we can actually do multiple backgrounds on a single thing. And we've already pushed this all the way to the edge, this block quote. So let's just keep it all in one place. Right here, I'm going to add a background image. Okay? And I'm going to set it to our first linear gradient is going to be right here. It's going to be from white to white. Okay? Let's just do white to white at the moment. So here we go. White, white, done. Okay? Above it, we want our next one. Sorry, not above it. Below it. So a comma, jumping around a little bit, linear gradient. And now we have this thing that we want, okay? So it's going to be to bottom. to bottom, we are going to go from transparent. Let's do that, transparent. Maybe wrap this just a little bit so we can see what we're doing. Brilliant. Transparent to sienna, to sienna, to transparent. Okay? Spell it right, Dave. There we go. Transparent. Now, we can't see anything because this white background is on the top. We need to take care of that. And if you remember from last time, we have something called background clip. Now, this time around, we have these two positions where this one wants to be on the content box. The content box is everything that you see between these two lines. Okay? And then this wants to be on either the border box or the padding box. It doesn't matter because we haven't actually added a border yet. Okay? So we can just go over here. The first one is content box, and the second one is padding box. And there we go. We're getting close. Okay, we're starting to see things happen. So let's go and take care of this. This transparency is going to be, let's say 45%. Okay, drives it down. This first one, this first sienna is going to be 0, which makes it a hard line. It just backs it out. It's like a bit of a magic trick. Second sienna is going to be 55%. So roughly 10% here. And then we finish with 0, which gives us a nice hard line. Okay? And in theory, this would be pretty good, right? It all just kind of works out. Except if we go all the way up to our body right here and add a background image, another linear gradient to bottom, and we're going to make this one linen and bisque. Where is it? Did I spell it wrong? Bisque. Oh, you know what? I didn't expand it. So gradient, just like this. And what you'll see is that it's light up here and dark down here. I could try to match this up so that it works. It would be a right pain in the butt, especially as responsiveness kicks in and changes things. I just don't think that this is a smart plan going forward, okay? Having this white over top of this box. Instead, what I think we should do is we should just use the borders. The borders will allow us to do all of this, okay? So if I go back, whoops, not that much, there we go. And I get rid of these lines, they aren't really needed anymore, but right down here, I can start to clean some of this up. So one more time, I'm going to comment all of this out, okay? And I'm going to start again down here. But instead of padding, I'm going to use border, which just feels a little bit weird, but stay with me. We're going to start by adding border. There it is. We have a border. But we need more, okay? Instead, what we need is, first, we don't need this part because that's going to be set automatically for us. Remember, this defaults to whatever the current text color is, and right now we have text color of black, okay? We're going to take care of that in a bit, but if we look at this, we can change some stuff, okay? So right down here, I'm going to go border width, and I'm going to set the border to 0 and whatever our calculation is. So I'm just going to go and grab this, copy it down right here. Now, nothing is working, and that's because our borders are playing games on us. We can go and change this a little bit to be style, which should not work. And the reason that it doesn't work is because I forgot that there is no percent on borders. It doesn't know what this percentage is. So let's go and change it to VW, which is a measurement that it absolutely knows about. And all of a sudden we have a situation that is just like our padding, only now it's a very ugly black border, but we can work with this, okay? Some weird spacing going on. There we go. Now at this point, we need a way to control our the height of these borders. And for that, we're going to use border image, okay? That border image is going to be exactly what we've done up here. So we're actually going to grab all of this first part, or all of this bottom part, copy it, paste it right in, without the comments, my bad. Here we go. Paste it in, get rid of the comments, and nothing. Why doesn't it work? Well, because we haven't actually told it how the border image should work. And the way that this works is kind of like this. I'm going to go and copy and paste in a comment right above this. So this is known as a 9 slice. And a 9 slice is basically an image that's been turned into this 3x3 grid. Okay? And the 9 slice is how border images work. So it's going to try and put this into this top corner. And then this is going to be the top border and the top right border and the middle and the bottom right corner and the bottom left corner. It's going to try and sandwich these pieces around the content. Now the cool thing is we actually only need the left and the right, so we can actually ignore most of this. And the way that we do that is by adding a measurement here. So if we were doing this 4 times, it would be 0, any sort of a percent, and you see it already jump in, and then the bottom and any sort of a percent, and it just sort of works. Now, in order to keep this clean, we can reduce it a little bit, okay? And I like to be very deliberate about my measurements, but there it is. We've gone the top, that's the top line, and the bottom line, that's going to be 0 and 0. And then left and right are going to be 100% and 100%. And that gives us this linear gradient. The cool thing is we can clean it up further. Let's go do that right now. I'm going to actually start way up here and start adding things like this. So rule color. I'm going to make that sienna. And I'm going to go and get rule width, which is going to be 10 pixels, just for chucks and giggles. And right here, this is going to be a var -- rule color. Copy and paste that really fast. Bring it all the way down. Paste it in. And now right here, I'm going to get rid of this 45 and go var 50% minus, sorry, not var, calc. It's gotta calculate it, right? But I am going to pull in that variable of -- rule width. I did say rule width, right? Yes, I did. Right like that. And one more time, grab this thing, copy it, paste it right in here, but make it a plus instead. And it is really, really big. In fact, if we measure this right now, it's going to be 20 pixels high. We can see that, 20 pixels. That's not what we wanted, and the reason that is because we didn't divide our rule by 2. So divide by 2, just figures out, divided by 2, and right there, okay? And the nice thing about this is that it will always stay centered. Now it's not collapsing, and that's because we haven't quite done everything that we need to do here, okay? So way up here, you see this border width? We need a minimum, okay? And so what we want to do here is add in a different sort of measurement. That looks like this. We're going to make it a minimum of 30 pixels we're actually going to pick the max for each of those. So you're going to see that. And now whichever one is smallest works. Now it's crowding right here. We can go and fix that by adding just a little bit of padding. So top and bottom is here. Make this one rem. And that way it's really, really nice. And everything just works, okay? Go and clear out our background color. We don't need that anymore. Go and clear out our body. We don't need that anymore. And all of a sudden we are pretty much there, okay? We have this thing that just works really, really nicely, okay? A little bit of crowding in there on the citation. We could go and take care of that. We could go and take care of the capital letter using something like initial letter on the first letter, right? That would be really easy. But to bring this to a conclusion, okay, we started out with this, this page, okay? At first glance, it looks pretty easy, but once we start trying to figure out this rule, the game changes. And the reason the game changes is because if we add any sort of a background to this block, then anytime we change the body, we have to change that background as well. And right now we made that easy using Canvas, but it might not always be, right? If you're doing something tricky like gradients or some sort of a textured background, then that goes out the window. So my advice was to switch to a border image. And that's exactly what we did over here. We started out by setting up all of our code. We were able to get it all done. And right down here, we played around a lot with some different ways to size things. So our max width wasn't going to work. Our background image wasn't going to work for all the reasons that I just talked about. If there was any sort of a change to the body background, this kind of flies out the window. And so what we did was we used a 9 slice. And that allows us to take that exact same thing, right? We didn't change much between here and there. We made it a little bit more modular, but we pretty much just use this linear gradient right down here to do the exact same thing. And it uses border image instead of background, which means that any changes to this body immediately go there. And all of our code for this rule is all handled right here. This comment's in the way, so I can't highlight it all, but everything that you need to control this is right here in one single place. Now, to cap it off, we did use some CSS custom properties, so we can really quickly go in here and go rule color and change that to anything else. And it just works. It's a little bit darker, kind of hard to see there. Maybe make it green just so that we can see the difference. And everything just works. So that's it. This has been the this challenge around, what is this magazine called? It is called, the Lodestars Anthology. And very basic layout, but these rules, very interesting. Would you have done it a different way? Would you have stuck with background? Would you have found a completely different way that I didn't talk about? Hit me up in the comments, let me know. I'm always interested to learn more. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.